Theresa Oberhauser, and I'm one of the members of UNCCD MGCY. What is UNCCD MGCY? UNCCD MGCY is the major group of children and youth towards UNCCD. What is a major group of children and youth? The major group of children and youth is the official engagement mechanism of young children and youth towards UNCCD. What does that mean? That means, on the one hand, the involvement of children and youth in the negotiations of UNCCD COPs, and on the other hand, also the close cooperation with UNCCD on youth aspects and any other aspects that consider youth in a structural and ongoing way. A major group of children and youth is a youth-led network and platform for youth and youth organizations worldwide that work on the topics of desertification, and that enables actually organizations from all over the world to come together on that platform and to engage together jointly in a democratic space and to raise the voice of youth towards UNCCD and towards the parties of the convention. UNCCD MGCY is relatively young youth constituency that has been founded in August 2019 during the UNCCD COB in Delhi, and within no time received a lot of new members and a lot of engaged members, and is now really working very closely with UNCCD on desertification aspects. If you're interested to join, there's a website that you will find in the description of the video. Thank you very much.
Hello everyone, my name is Juliet Grace and I'm from the UNCCD Youth Caucus. Together with my colleagues Igratna and Teresa, we had the honor to be a part of this year's UNCCD Land Heroes Jury, along with the UNCCD Land Ambassador, Baba Mal, and the Executive Secretary, Ibrahim Ta. We are witness to outstanding initiatives led and mobilized by youth from different parts of the world, taking care of land as part of the solution to climate change. It's important to note that there are no finalists or even ultimate land heroes in this campaign, as we are all land heroes. All the submissions that were received are a testament of how committed young people are to improve the health of the planet on their own scale through their different innovative ways and solutions. Amongst the land heroes, I'm glad to introduce to you the top 10. Vanessa Nakate from Uganda is the founder of the Rise Up movement, where her work involves installation of solar stoves in schools to enable clean cooking, hence reducing wood used by schools by more than a half. Patricia Kombo from Kenya, through the Palm Tree initiative that she founded, she gives trainings to students from various schools, sensitizes them to climate change and food security by teaching them to plant and grow trees. We had Wise and Taste, a non-profit organization from the Netherlands, started by two young world ambassadors passionate about plastic and waste reduction. They offer an educational platform to inform users about their waste footprint and accept donation for waste management efforts in critical areas of the world. The partnerships are from the Maldives, India, and Madagascar. Ciencia Mágica from Mexico, her team focuses on raising awareness and promoting sustainable communities through environmental education. They have created a family garden-friendly kit to promote growing food and have contact with land. Alondra Frauster is a young woman raising awareness on climate change through her social media accounts. Kelsa Basu from Canada is the founder and the president of the Green Hope Foundation, involving communities in mangrove conservation and tree planting around the world. Their work is in Canada, the UAE, USA, Nepal, and India. Nature Bodies is a team of school students from India working to achieving sustainable development goals by empowering the people and communities. They sensitize and empower youth through pond cleaning activities. They have planted seed balls around the ponds to combat drought and desertification. Ricardo is an environmental engineer developing a recovery project of saline and sodic soils in the coast of Peru. David Chapolok is a young climate advocate from Zambia, leading the movement of Art for Climate in Zambia, a project that consists of cleaning areas from litter and using the plastic and other material to make art. Maria is from the Republic of the Philippines and the co-founder of Atoani, whose mission is to use only natural and sustainable farming practices free from synthetic pesticides and fertilizers. The initiative that will be awarded the 500 US money prize to invest in their project and scale up their initiative is Cynthia Mahica from Mexico. Cynthia and her team have created a family garden-friendly kit to support communities to grow their own food and have contact with land. Congratulations, Ciencia.
Hola, mi nombre es Alondra Jazmín Fraustro Cardiel. El día de hoy estoy muy feliz por compartirles esta gran noticia. Hemos recibido el premio Héroes de la Tierra, Land Heroes, por la Convención de las Naciones Unidas para combatir la desertificación. Para mí es muy emocionante representar a mi país y saber que nuestro proyecto está cruzando fronteras. Seguiremos compartiendo esta pasión por cuidar el planeta, promoviendo el cultivo de nuestros alimentos por medio de la instalación de huertos, logrando así un mundo mejor para todos, con más educación y una nutrición sustentable. Gracias por esta gran oportunidad. Seamos héroes del planeta y juntos afrontemos el cambio climático.
Hi, this is Birendra Rai from India. Natural system, human health and agricultural production have been badly affected by devastating environmental climate change. With the abrupt change of climate and the environment condition, the harsh impact of plant productivity are progressing in owing to direct and indirect effect of abiotic stresses. Because of continuous deforestation and excessive utilize of fossil fuels, the effect of climate change and environment variation are mainly estimated to the number of stresses spelled. The impact on daily life and damage agricultural crops. The developing countries' agricultural yield is predominantly suffered due to adverse environmental conditions. Therefore, high temperature harm the crops and excess of CO2. The climate change are affecting crops like wheat, soybean, corn, and due to the increase of insect population, it is harming rice field, which has been a daily use as food on dinner, breakfast, or in lunch in rural areas. Climate change can reduce yield by the amplification of rosy waves. There is a possibility that affect the already existing. The climate change induced in increasing greenhouse gases is likely to affect crops differently from region to region. Some countries are moving to development of future food safety, like breeding more resilient crops varieties, using improved agroforestry species, increasing food cover, use of emerging water harvesting. So, for the safeguard, we have to respond because we are the youth, where we can create impactful hope response for the climate action, agricultural, and for food safety. Thank you.
Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon, everyone who have joined this session from different parts of the world. I am Shayan Zuberi, and I am working as a research assistant at National University of Science and Technology, and also a part of UNEP MGCY. I am from Pakistan, which is located in South Asian region and is a developing country, and its economy is totally dependent on agriculture. A few months have now passed since the global crisis was put on the world agenda. The cause of the problem have been identified and more or less understood. Yet the food crisis is still unfolding. Prices are still very high. A whole class of new poor has emerged. Governments are scrambling to find or manage grain supplies. An eruption of another major setback could provoke a really dramatic crisis. Everyone agrees that something needs to be done, but there is vast disagreement. As to what this implies, a number of policymakers, corporate board of directors, and most governments and their advisors want us to continue on the course of industrializing agriculture and liberalizing trade and investment. After research on internet, Singapore, which is a developed country where the staple food has long been rice, people are beginning to eat more potatoes. This is scarcely surprising because potato prices have remained stable while the rice prices have shot up 30 to 40% since the beginning of 2008. Even so, there is a lot of ground to be made up. In 2007, rice consumption was almost 10 times that of potatoes. It is now time to break with the past to mobilize around a new creative vision.
Welcome to this panel discussion here today with 5 interesting women from all over the world. We're here today because of the UNCCD Land Heroes project, a project that is awarding prizes to young environmental and desertification advocates that are doing extraordinary things on environmental and desertification issues. And we're here today to talk about sustainable consumption and specifically about food consumption. And we're here to compare the different situations in countries and talk about the different aspects of food and sustainable consumption and how young people are actually playing a very crucial role in solving those issues. We are here with Christian from Trinidad and Tobago. We're here with Hadia from originally Pakistan, now the US. We are here with Juliette from Uganda, and we're here with Zara from Jordan. Thank you very much for being here. And I'm handing over to the first intervention from Christian on Trinidad and Tobago.
Thank you, Teresa. So for my 2-minute intervention, I'll try to keep it short. I'm going to talk about sustainable agriculture as a form of sustainable production, because you can't have a sustainable consumption without a product that is produced sustainably. So some basic practices that we can use to implement climate smart agriculture are using plants that are native to your country and are suited to grow in the climate. For example, in the Caribbean, we use breadfruit and cassava, which are native, they grow very well, and they are staple crops. Avoid using monoculture. That way you don't exhaust the soil, and you can also market more products that can sell. Intermix your crops and include nitrogen fixing legumes, so you can reload the soil, so to say. Use responsible irrigation. So especially if you live somewhere hot or that has water issues, you want to use something like this. Or use water. Can't remember the name.
Maybe hydroponics.
Yeah. What was that?
Maybe the hydroponics technique.
Yes, hydroponics. That's. You can use hydroponics. You can use aquaponics if you want to maximize the products you want to sell. And it's important to remember that agriculture uses around 70% of the water that is used globally. So it's quite intensive. And finally, you'll want to minimize the use of artificial fertilizers and pesticides as much as possible. So compost for fertilizer and use integrated pest management, and really stay away from anything that's marketed by those big companies. I'll just mention a few things that youth can do. First of all, youth can buy local, because the demand for local will increase will show that there's a demand for supply, and that will mean that there's more of an incentive to supply local. And for those youth who have entrepreneurial spirits, you can begin your own small scale agricultural operations. For example, there's actually a small company in Trinidad called AgriNation, who was started by a guy out of my own university, University of the West Indies. And he uses a lot of hydroponics. He also makes videos on Facebook showing people how to do their own hydroponic operations at home. And I think it's important to note that even though we can't, well, for small countries anyway, even if we can't supply everything that we use, we can still minimize as much as possible. The CARICOM food import bill, the Caribbean Community food import bill, is around 4.5 million US annually, and that's a lot for countries that only make maybe $1 billion US in GDP. And that is my intervention. I'd like to pass along to Hadia.
Thank you, Christian.
My thoughts are very similar to yours in the fact that I would like to talk a little bit about how the overproduction of hyper-processed, ultra-processed food, calorie-dense food is actually leading to the most serious global health challenge of our century, which is childhood obesity. So 1 in 5 children in the world, children and adolescents in the world are obese, and the vast majority of them live in developing countries. And this is a huge problem because childhood obesity can lead to serious health issues like heart disease, diabetes. It impacts the quality of life, and it can even shorten lifespans. And in order to really combat this very serious challenge, there are 3, I think, core things that young people can think about and that they can act on. One is to actually study native ecosystems to understand what actually grows naturally within their communities, within their countries, and to restore that. The second is to actually look, as you were saying, at traditional food crop cultivation, because the plant-based diet is so important in supporting immune health. And I think that the third piece connects to this, because if young people start to bring back traditional methods of cooking, which is food preparation, food preservation, and they preserve that knowledge. You know, the food that our grandmothers and our great-grandmothers, or our grandparents used to eat, it kept them healthy, it gave them energy, and that knowledge is being lost. And so that is something very important that young people can do, is to actually protect their traditional food heritage, because that will also then lead to preserving things like biodiversity, and prevent deforestation, because a lot of the commercial farming practices are having very disastrous ripple effects, not just on our ecosystem, but also on our health. And with that, I would like to pass it on to Zara.
Yeah, thank you, ladies, for this interesting session. And actually, I will combine between the production that Christian said about and the health issues that you've mentioned, thankfully. Actually, sometimes we have to understand how much is the problem to go more serious toward reducing our maybe consumption and reducing our consumption patterns. I would like to talk about my region and to measure that on the whole world. In Jordan, we have 50 to 65% of our solid waste, only organic and bio waste. And most of them are fruit, vegetables, coffee grains, tea leaves, and breads. And I would like to highlight something specifically about the breads. Thankfully that the breads is the only item that we can recycle it. Why? Because we have 2 reasons. First of all, religiously, as the Muslims in Jordan, we don't throw the bread directly in the trash bin. We like hold it in separate bag beside the trash bin. And the second thing that we do, because it's makes some profits, because you can sell it to the sheep farmers, so they can feed it to their sheep. So sometimes, yes, you have to understand how much is the problem. You know that this amount of food, it's the major source of the leachate in the landfill, and the major source of the landfill gas. So sometimes, yes, the problem, how much is it big, it gives you a call to make more serious actions. And I would like to mention some specific types of foods as example. Each 1 kilogram of butter consumes around 5,000 liters of water, the water footprint of 1 kilogram of butter, while the water footprint for 1 kilogram of apples only around 700 liters of water. So if I substitute, for example, some bakeries in my buffet, or like food catering services in some events, or some like gathering people event with 1 kilogram, you can imagine that I'm saving around 4K of liters of water. And so my call for youth to sum up this problem, first of all, we have, just like Christian mentioned, that we have to supply food, and especially like fruit and vegetables, from locals, because it in addition to supporting local farmers, it has impact, as you mentioned, Hadia, on health issues, because when I eat a fresh fruit, it's different, totally different than eating sometimes of food full of sugar and butter and so on. And the second thing that youth can make, like just when I mentioned the bread example, that they can make business opportunities and entrepreneurship opportunities from youth from food waste, for example, by composting products, by recycling food, and even sometimes charity-wise. Like in Jordan, we have some entities taking food, excess food for poor people and people who are orphans and people who need food. So sometimes we need this integration between many youth entities and many youth activism to make like the full image of reducing our consumption. Yeah. Now I'm moving to Juliet.
Thank you very much, Zara. Everyone that's tuning in, thank you for making the time to be a part of this conversation. I am really proud to also be a part of this conversation. Today we are discussing issues of food security and anything that goes into food, desertification and land, food, feed and fiber, but then we still cannot take away from climate change and how it affects food security. Due to the increasing temperatures and conditions, food production is really being affected, hence the quality of crops. That's why now we're actually having issues with obesity, because now we are resorting into eating processed foods. The other effect of climate change affecting crop production is the change in atmospheric conditions, such as the rise in the greenhouse emission gases and then the rise of carbon dioxide levels. We all understand that food security is the state of being without reliable access to sufficient quality of affordable, nutritious food. And despite there being highly increased levels of food security, there's also food wasted every year. The UN actually, in one of their reports, shows that every year in the continent, that's from where I come from in Africa, up to 300 million people waste food. And in just my country alone in Uganda, 40% of fruits and vegetables end up being discarded. The issue is there is no access to organic food. Organic food is really expensive, so people end up eating processed foods. But then how do we actually combat the issue of food insecurity? The only way to go about food insecurity would be us addressing issues of climate change, ecosystems degradation and poverty. We need to use, as young people, we need to be able to use an innovative approach that decentralizes the development and application of the policy solutions that have been created, however much they are bureaucratic, they've been formed in bureaucratic channels, to ensure immediate results are recorded at the grassroots levels for an inclusive and participatory way. That's if we are to achieve the sustainable development goals. The other thing would be, as young people, we do not actually need to reinvent the wheel, but rather provide an optimized channel to implement existing and envisioned gradual development plans. The principal mandate should be to support the implementation of the various continental and global blueprints on food security and sustainable industrialization and development. Like you will hear from my colleague, Teresa, who is going to share about the industrial aspect. Once we are able to handle and tackle all these solutions, I feel like the issues of food, feed, and fiber will be addressed. Yeah, thank you very much. Back to you, Teresa.
Yeah, thank you very much, Juliet. And I can actually only contribute to that. I mean, you were talking about the local level, about local solutions. And I think that is one of the main problems that we are seeing, that this traditional picture of food being produced locally and sold locally is not really true nowadays anymore, that actually food is traded at the global market, which often ends up being a disadvantage for developing countries, because in many developing countries, the products that come from abroad are sometimes cheaper than the regional products. And that really puts local farmers in jeopardy. And I mean, this is also an aspect that is really relevant for climate change issue, because for those kind of food aspects, transportation is a huge contribution to greenhouse gases, and the local food is, of course, in that sense, a lot lower in carbon emissions. So that it has the climate aspect, but of course also the problems of the local farmers that cannot market their own food. And that goes even further. I mean, food is nowadays traded at the stock market, and there are speculations on food, which is insane and really difficult for farmers that really need to have a stable price to actually ensure their further production. And further on, we have more and more parts of food that are privatized. We have water that is privatized. We have big water and companies that are privatizing water in many parts of the world. Same goes for seeds. There are many patents on special seeds, which are actually decreasing the possibilities for local farmers to just develop their own seeds further and put them in situations where they have to buy expensive seeds that are only for one season. So it's actually a structural problem. And to be honest, this is also one of the problems where I think young people have a very small role in solving it, because these structural issues are highly political and also debated at the UN level. But basically issues where it's mostly, apart from, of course, consuming the right brands of food, or of course buying locally and advocating for those solutions at the UN level, there's not really a lot that young people can do. And but I'm sure there are many other topics where young people actually have a way better role in finding solutions and finding ways forward. Hadia, I think your example was really great on really hands-on approach of what young people can do to improve the situation.
Thank you, Teresa. I actually also wanted to add that another powerful aspect of change being driven by youth is to actually have conversations with parents as well. Because sometimes it actually is very compelling when the child says that, I want to cook something traditional, I want to work, I want to be in the kitchen with you, I want to learn this, or can we eat something local? Because I think that it is a collective effort, and sometimes the solutions can come from the younger members in a family, and can actually change the behavior of a family unit, which can then have, the upward, sort of the bottom-up effect in a positive way. So I agree, and I also agree with what you were saying, that sometimes the structures seem to be built in a way that makes it very difficult to see how we could solve this. But I actually really believe in the power of the purchasing power is actually almost a vote. Right? Every time we spend 1 unit of currency, it's a vote for something and a vote against something. So if we were to think about our collective purchasing power as like a global youth population, even the ones in the most impoverished countries, even the ones that don't have a lot of income, that is still a considerable purchasing power vote. And we will not always be young. We will move into adulthood, and then we will be the heads of households. So that the training and the knowledge that we equip ourselves with now will help us, over the course of our lives. And maybe that's when we can make that systemic change.
Maybe if I could give a direct response or propose a solution. One of the things that we can do as young people, if we are to actually be able to solve the issue of food insecurities, fiber, land, and desertification, is one of the things is, as young people, we do not actually have access to land. How then are we able to grow food? How then are we able to participate in the food production chain? We can actually start utilizing the small spaces within our homes. Backyard gardening is one of the things that we should actually do. There's a lot of information on the internet about how to grow food in small spaces. And once the people around us, the adults, see us taking such small steps and telling them, I can actually grow vegetables here at home, however small the space is, they'll be able to actually support us. Who knows, probably they'll be like, actually, there is that land that has not been utilized. What can you do to make sure that it rejuvenates, and then you can grow your food at a larger scale yeah, that's something that came to mind after Heidi's intervention.
Yeah, and if may add something related to youth actions, that I believe that it comes from traits and desire, like for example, what they fear from and that what they want. And for example, incentives for youth. In Jordan, for example, we are the world highest rate of engineers, so we need more business opportunities, we need more entrepreneurship ideas. So sometimes you feel that, yeah, this is something has potentials to invest in or to take actions, and it's returned back in something for me and for the earth in general. And the second thing is how much is like big the problem. So it's something like threaten my future and my kids' future, and yeah, so on. So I believe that we have to combine between what the problem is and what is in it for me, what potential opportunities in this problem. Maybe we can like convert each problem to an opportunity.